So we've been hearing a lot of stories in the media lately where people are going to their immigration interviews for, say, adjustment of status or some benefit at USCIS, and they are getting detained. And overwhelmingly, a large percentage of these people have removal orders and oftentimes don't even know it. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. But the single most important thing you do prior to showing up to an interview in this administration is, if there is any chance that you have a removal order, do a FOIA request before you start your process, or at least before you go to your interview. So who might have a removal order and not know it? A big group of people are individuals who entered as children with their parents. Oftentimes, you do not have all of the information, not intentionally because your parents aren't sharing it with you, but many years have passed, and what ends up being the case in these situations is they entered with their parents, they were babies or small children. They actually were processed by immigration. They were giving an NTA or a notice to appear, and the parents simply never went to court. Because the children are a rider on the parents' case, the children now have in absentia orders of removal. Now these children have grown up and they are applying for benefits. They have asked their parents multiple times, did we ever have an issue with immigration? The parents have said no. And the reality is maybe for lack of understanding, not consulting with an attorney, a language barrier, whatever it is, there actually is a removal order in that person's history. So that is one big chunk of people. If you fall in that group of people, you entered as a child, I strongly recommend you do a FOIA or have your parents do a FOIA to make sure that in fact you do not have an in absentia removal order, right? One that you didn't know about. Second group of people are people who were detained, at the border, and they think they have a voluntary return. They're like, oh, no, I don't have a expedited removal, or I don't have a deportation. I was just returned. No me dejaron pasar. They didn't let me enter. And in fact, they don't realize that they were issued an expedited removal at the border. I have a rule of thumb. It's not foolproof, but expedited removal usually we're gonna see these at the border after 1997. Between 97 and 2010, I find it's hit or miss. Some are voluntary returns, some are expedited removals for individuals that were detained. Like they tried to enter, they were sent back, and then they re-entered, okay? If they were in fact detained prior to 97, usually it's a voluntary return. After 2010, usually it's expedited removal. The gray area is between 97 to 2010. If you were held for a matter of hours, generally, rule of thumb, but don't count on this, do a FOIA. It's probably a voluntary return, especially in the early 2000s and 90s. If you were held overnight, probably expedited removal. Again, these are just rules of thumbs when I'm trying to consult and say, okay, either way, we're going to need to do a FOIA, but assuming it is either expedited removal or a voluntary return, those are the rules of thumb that I use, and they are not foolproof by any means. But those are the two groups of people that I think are most at risk when seeking a benefit if they have not done a FOIA prior to attending their interview of being detained for having a removal order and not knowing it. People who entered as children with their parents, and people who think they took a voluntary return at the border. They were apprehended but don't consider it a deportation, and then they learned it was an expedited removal.